Good day! In this lesson we are going to review how to convert fractions to decimals using long division. A rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction a over b, where a and b are both integers and b does not equal 0. So we're going to take the fraction a over b and we're going to turn it into a division problem because all fractions are division problems. So a over b means a divided by b. And when we do the long division, remember that inside the division sign is the numerator and outside is the denominator. So a over b is equivalent to a divided by b, and when we write it in long division, the a is inside the division box. In order to be successful with this topic, we need to know our multiplication facts. So if you are struggling with multiplication facts, make sure that you do some fact cards, some index cards of your multiplication facts. Let's start with an example, 5/16. When I have 5/16, I can rewrite it as a division problem, 5 divided by 16, and then I can write it with the division sign, which looks like that, and the numerator goes inside the box and the denominator goes outside the box. Be sure not to switch those around. Alright, so when we're doing 5 divided by 16, we need to put a decimal point after the 5, which means I need to put one on the top, add some zeros, and it doesn't matter how many zeros you add, we can always add more if we need them. And now we need to do our multiplication facts, know our multiplication facts. So how many times does 16 go into 5? 0 times, so we put the 0 up there. So then we ask how many times it goes into 50. We ignore the decimal point since we already put one up top. So 16 times 3 is 48, and 16 times 4 is 64. So we know it has to go in 3 times, so we put the 3 up here. 3 times 16 is 48, and then we subtract. 50 minus 48 is 2, and we drop down the 0. So now I ask myself, how many times does 16 go into 20? It goes in 1 time. So I multiply 16 times 1, and I get 16, and then I subtract. 20 minus 16 is 4, so we drop down another 0. The next question, how many times does 16 go into 40? Well, 16 times 3 was 48. That's too big. So 16 times 2 is 32. Subtract, and I get 8. So I need to add another 0 up here. I didn't add enough. Drop down the 0. And how many times does 16 go into 80? 16 times 5 is 80, so I put the 5 up top, put the 80 down here, and subtract, and I get a 0. Whenever I have a 0 after I subtract, I know I'm done. So what we have figured out is that 5/16 as a fraction is equivalent to 0.3125 as a decimal. This decimal that we have here is called a terminating decimal. And this is a terminating decimal because it ends. We had an ending of 5. So let's move on to another example where it doesn't end. Example 2, we are going to do 5/6. So we are going to convert 5/6 to a decimal. So 5/6 is equivalent to 5 divided by 6. And when I write that with the division bar, 5, the numerator, goes inside the box, and 6 goes outside the box. Watch out. Don't put 6 divided by 5. Now let's get going with 5 divided by 6. So we put our decimal point and add some zeros. Again, we can add some more zeros later if we need to. Put the decimal point up top wherever we put it on the bottom. And then you ask yourself, how many times does 6 go into 5? It doesn't go in, so we put a 0. And then we ask, how many times does 6 go into 50? Well, 6 times 8 is 48, so we put an 8 up top, put the 48 under the 50, and subtract. 50 minus 48 is 2. Drop down the 0. How many times does 6 go into 20? 6 times 3 is 18, so we put an 18 down here after we put the 3 up top. 20 minus 18 is 2. Drop down the 0. Ask yourself, how many times does 6 go into 20? We just did that. That was 3. 3 times 6 is 18. Subtract. We get a 2. And so now we notice that there is going to be a continuing pattern that we will always put a 3 up top, and when we subtract, we will get a 2 as the remainder down there. So this is a repeating decimal. So we have just found that 5/6 is equivalent to 0.83, where the 3 repeats. So we put the repetend bar only over the 3. Do not put it over the 8, because that would be wrong. So again, when we have a number that repeats over and over again, or a set of numbers that repeat, it's called a repeating decimal, and the bar that goes over the repetition is called a repetend. And this gives you enough information to be able to convert fractions into decimals.